Well, good morning. I'm going off script already, which is never a good thing, but I'm going to let you all know this is my first speaking engagement since COVID pandemic. So bear with me as I get back into that sort of thing. What you're going to see today is brand new. I've never presented it. It's got some new information in there, so I'm going to be going a lot from notes just because I haven't done it, haven't gone over it that much. And I will say that since it is my first presentation, I was talking to my kids about how to start. And this will show you, this is that everybody in here who has kids will understand polar opposites. So I asked my son, I was like, I'm speaking, doing this, how should I start? Start with a joke. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And this is the joke you should use. And then I talked to my daughter about it. She's like, absolutely not. That is not, like, she shut it down. And I'm going to, for full disclosure, I'm a little bit more intimidated by her than him, so I'm not starting with a joke. If I have time at the end, maybe I'll share the joke. So I'm looking through here, I see mostly friendly faces. No, I see faces I know, but there may be some of you that don't know. My name is Bryan Brown. I am a law enforcement officer. I've been a law enforcement officer for 23 years. We'll see if this is going to work. Maybe not. It was working. Did I do that or did you do that? You did it, okay. So I've been a law enforcement officer for 23 years. 21 of those years I've been with the Evansville Police Department. On your left, that's when I started with Henderson PD back in '98, and then obviously, Brandy agreed to marry me. That was in February of 2000. In March of 2000, I left for the police academy. Probably not the best move when you just get married, but that's how it went. And then, obviously, that's when I was at the academy, and then that's when I graduated, and that's my grandfather up there. So the last 11 years, I've been working full-time as a federal task force officer with the FBI on a task force that tackles online child exploitation. In that, one of my biggest responsibilities is to proactively, or in a lot of cases reactively, investigate individuals who are engaging in technology-facilitated crimes to exploit children around the world. And I know that's kind of a big word, but so what I'm getting ready to tell you now comes from the 4th National Survey of Internet and Technology-Facilitated Child Exploitation. It was funded by the National Institution of Justice, and it says, technology-facilitated child sexual exploitation crimes are characterized by rapid growth and changing dynamics. For example, in 2000, there were an estimated 2,577 arrests for technology-facilitated child sexual exploitation crimes of all types. By 2006, the number of arrests had almost tripled to 7,010 and increased to 8,144 in 2009. The characteristics of arrests for child pornography production changed significantly during that time, with large increases in teenage victims and cases involving youth-produced sexual images. And that's where I'm going to focus most of my time today, is on those youth-produced sexual images. What I'm going to share today comes from several sources. It comes from cases that I've worked. It comes from cases I've been involved with. It comes from training and resources I've read regarding the issue of trying to protect children online. And honestly, I'll try this again. Is that me? Did I do that? No, you did it, okay. We'll just so what I'm going to share today comes from those several sources. And I use this example just because it's this iceberg. The iceberg represents the overall problem. And what we're going to talk about today is not what's above the water. It's actually like the tip of what's above the water. That's the problem that we're we're dealing with. And I will take this moment to say, I will not use names of local people that I've arrested or that have been arrested. I'm not going to do that, just in case there would be somebody that's family or friends with that person. And I would never use the name of a child that's been involved in a case, so no worries there if you're considering that. I certainly do not consider myself an expert in this area or on this topic, and I will freely admit I do not have all the answers. This topic is very much like trying to hit a moving target. The kids change their ways quite frequently, as well do the individuals who are online targeting children. And if you want to try to wrap your mind around it, just look at how fast apps come into existence and then go out. They're very quick. So that kind of gives you an idea of the evolving nature of this. The title for this today is Don't Be Afraid, Be Aware, an honest look at your child's online safety. And I know there's a lot in that title. And at the end of this, I hope you'll be able to see that we've covered all of that and you feel slightly more comfortable with the idea of your child being online. And I'm not encouraging people to send your kids online. I'm just saying if you're going to, hopefully you'll be a little bit more comfortable. If you're comfortable with it now, hopefully I don't mess that up for you. So that's a part where you can laugh. Like, I want you to laugh a little bit because this is a heavy topic. So I should have told the joke. This has fallen flat. So I do need to cover a disclaimer, which will be the next slide that comes up. So this is big. I think this is being recorded, so this is a big deal. You can read that. Basically what it's saying is this isn't an Evansville Police Department presentation, and it's definitely not a Federal Bureau of Investigation presentation. So they are not involved in this in any way. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you have a problem with it, don't go to them, go to Pastor Ernie, because he asked me to do it. Now, some of you heard me speak at Faith Bible Church on this topic, and I will say today's going to be different. I talked to several people while putting this one together just to get like, what did you like about that one, what did you not like, and got some pretty good feedback. So I will say there's not going to be as many videos showing the kids responding to fake accounts. While I believe those videos are valuable, we don't have to watch so many for you to get the point. The reality is this could be a day-long seminar or even more, but I have like 35 minutes, 40 minutes at this point, so I'd like to leave time at the end for some questions also. So I guess what I'm saying is buckle up and hang on because we're going to move pretty quick. And so my question is, why do we need a class like this for parents? There are countless reasons. If you think back to the iceberg, there's a lot of reasons why we need it for adults. Technology is new and foreign to us, but screens are not going anywhere and the internet's not going anywhere. And why do we need this class for kids? It's different for kids. Dr. Kathy Cook stated in her book, Screens and Teens, which we'll talk more about later, she says, if you're 32 or younger, you've never known life without technology. And I had to stop and think about that, but that's actually pretty accurate. And she says, young people don't think about their technology. It's like breathing for them. They just do it. And Alan Kay, a visionary computer scientist, declared, technology is technology only for people who were born before it was invented. One expert in the effects of media and technology on culture says, technology is fast, it's cheap, it's effective, it's cool, and that's the good part. The bad part is technology is fast, it's cheap, it's effective, and it's cool. So I ask again at this point, why do we need a class like this for us and our children? Because of people like Daniel Dunphy and Richard Finkbeiner. And actually, the list could go on and on and on. I could stand up here and read names all day long of people that have been arrested for these types of crimes. But kind of like with the videos, you get the point. There's lots of names. Fink Biner is probably the closest, and hopefully there's nobody here that's related to him, but he was up in Terre Haute. So technology is fast, cheap, effective, and for the most part, it allows anyone who can get their hands on a smartphone to target children. So the Dunphys and the Fink Biners of the world, they don't need the dark web, because that's what everybody always asks me to talk about, the dark web, but this isn't happening on the dark web. Because how many of you in here who have children know that your kids are on the dark web? And if the kids in here are honest, how many of you are on the dark web? This isn't happening on the dark web. This is happening in broad daylight. So we're not going to talk about the dark web. Dunphys and Fink Biners don't need the dark web. They need a smartphone, and they need Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi at the nearest fast food restaurant. That's it. That's all they need. So because of people like Dunphy and Fink Biner and the rest of them, I've decided that my time today is best spent with you talking about the threat to our children online that is growing at an unbelievable pace. This threat is a form of extortion. It's not new, but it is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. And why is it becoming a bigger and bigger problem? Because kids are going online and they're getting cell phones younger and younger. And quite honestly, they're very easy targets for people like Daniel Dunphy and Richard Finkbeiner. If you want to show the slide of Mr. Dunphy. So that's Daniel Dunphy. He's from Florida. He was 21 years old at the time of his arrest. During his investigation, they were able to positively identify 8 victims, ranging from 13 to 17 years old. Those victims were located in Florida, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, and Tennessee. His apps of choice, and remember, we're not talking about the dark web, his apps of choice were Instagram, Kik, and Snapchat. Now, if I asked in here how many people have kids who have an Instagram account, probably some hands are going to go up. And Snapchat probably. Kik you may not be so familiar with, but I can assure you the kids in here know what Kik is. Right? Kids? They're like, seriously? Like, why? Okay, if you want to show Finkbeiner now. Pleasant guy. Richard Finkbeiner was 40 years old at the time of his arrest. During his investigation, it was discovered he had 300 plus victims, all boys, ranging from 12 to 16 years old. I don't know how many were positively identified in his investigation. That's a nightmare, trying to identify that many kids. As I mentioned earlier, this type of crime is a form of extortion. The individual targeting children will set up fake accounts, pretending to be children themselves. They begin an online relationship and test the child they are talking to. So what they're doing, everything's calculated. So what they're doing with that child online is calculated. They're trying to figure out, is this a child that lives at home with a single parent? Is this a child who doesn't like his parents, likes her parents, whatever? They're just testing to see what they can do with this kid. They will begin getting more personal, and eventually they will try to get some sort of compromising material, whether that's something the child said or admitted to doing, or it may be a compromising picture or video. Once the individual has that compromising material, or that picture or that video, they will then begin to demand more compromising material. Or the consequences for the child will be that the original compromising material will be released to the public, including parents, other family members, friends, teachers, etc. You see where that's a problem? So these kids don't even realize that they're walking right into a trap when these individuals are asking them questions, and they think, oh, it's just another kid that's asking me questions that kids ask. During my investigations of this type of crime, I've heard the following statements from parents. These are actual quotes. I wanted to give them their space and privacy. I didn't want to watch them 24/7. Maybe I should have. And I watched them like a hawk. I checked their phones. How could this happen? The reality is no child can be monitored 24/7. Checking phones, monitoring content, none of that is bad, but it's not necessarily working. And I want to look at some stats here. So if you can go to, I know that's small print for you, those of you in the back, but there's really only a couple things here that I want you to see. So these stats come from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They're a clearinghouse for all of these types of crimes. And obviously you can see on top is child pornography, which this is a week. This isn't like over the course of a year. This is August 8th through August 14th. They received reports about child pornography 639,000 times. What I want you to see, though, is not so much that one. Obviously, that's number one, but what's number two? Somebody who's close enough that can read it. Online enticement of children for sexual acts. 745 in a week. So if you go to the next slide, 889 in a week. Next slide. 845 in a week. And the last one, I did 4 weeks, 838. That's on a weekly basis. So it's not taking into account the ones from the week before. So if you start doing the math on that, and you can see out to the side, since they've started that program, they've had 212,000 reports of this. That's staggering. So these stats clearly show that the second biggest problem coming into the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is online enticement of children. I have a couple slides here that from an organization called Thorn, and I would encourage you to Google that and look them up later. I have a video that I'll play that will tell you more about Thorn after we look at these stats, but I want to look at a couple of these, and there's a couple things in these that I want to point out now, but they'll come back in later. On this slide, what I want you to see is so it says, where's it happening? Where does it happen? 54% of this is occurring in social networks. Why? Because that's where the kids are, right? The other thing I want you to see from this side is 45%. 45% involve more than one platform. That will come up later. You can go to the next slide. On this slide, the main thing to pay attention to is the 60%, where it says 60% of online victims threatened within 2 weeks of initial contact. So this isn't something where your child meets someone online and 6 months later there's a problem. There's a problem within 2 weeks. So that'll come up later as well. You can go to the next one. On this one, what I want you to see is, who are they disclosing to? They're disclosing to parents, family, somebody that's close to them. They're not going to law enforcement. 17% got reported to law enforcement. That's a problem. That needs to go up. That needs to go way up. But the reason you're here is so that we can figure out a better way that they're going to come to you, because they're not going to go to law enforcement. I think we'll go ahead and show that video real quick, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit more.
What I've seen makes you question humanity.
There was a particular special that was an expose that was addressing this issue.
Children that were 6 and 7 years old were being molested for money.
That just kind of set us on a search to understand the issue and make ultimately a commitment that this was something that, we were prepared to take on, even if it meant for the rest of our life.
Child pornography is an issue that has evolved. By 1990 or so, we thought the problem had disappeared. And then came the internet. And with the internet, the problem exploded.
Because of the communication that exists, because of technology and the internet, you meet a stranger that has a similar interest to you, and next thing you know, you're sharing content around that particular interest. Well, that might happen with cars, and that might happen with hobbies, but it also happens with child pornography and human trafficking of underage children.
In 2004, when the National Center was receiving reports of potential child pornography, the volume was approximately 450,000 files. Recently, that number has expanded, and we've now received over 17 million.
The age of children is becoming increasingly younger, and it's more and more likely that individuals have not only child pornography, but child pornography with violent themes.
The offenders in these kinds of crimes do not match society's stereotype. These are people who are part of our community.
They have a craving to get more, and they want to share it with other people. And they create international and global networks of pedophiles sharing images of the people that they abuse.
A lot of these networks are actually moving this kind of content and actually moving human beings for money.
Pimps and traffickers no longer have to just, work the street. They can just place an ad and sit back and have their customers come to them wherever they might be.
People are posted and sold online multiple times a day. As far as the ad that was posted up, there was a girl who eerily looked like me. That was the picture they put up there for me on the ad. Just how you can go find a car, it was a picture and a description and a price.
The internet is being used for child sexual exploitation. And Thorn is the organization that said, let's go use technology and innovation to solve this issue.
We have to stay on the front cutting edge of that technology because the criminals, they're on the front cutting edge.
One of the first things that Demain Ashton did was they built a technology task force. And the whole idea is to bring the brightest minds in technology together to brainstorm around this issue.
Microsoft and Facebook and Twitter and Google are competing every day in business, but they've all agreed to work together to find a solution to human trafficking and the sexual exploitation of children.
A core set of our programs deals with deterrence, in making sure that as people are engaging in activities that they're aware of the consequences of what they're doing and provide opportunities for help.
Anything that can make child pornography more difficult to access, that makes people feel less anonymous online, that can have an impact.
One of the most extraordinary programs that we've been able to implement is what we call our shared hash program.
When one company finds a child abuse image on their network, they will report it to the National Center, and they'll create a digital fingerprint of it and send it up to the cloud. And all the other participating companies can pull that fingerprint down and find that image on their network. And what this results in is more rapid identification and removal of this content across the internet, and ideally will lead to quicker identification and rescue of these children. One of the partners we're working on with one of our programs is Polaris Project. They run the National Human Trafficking Hotline.
The Be Free text short code is a new short code. The reason we launched it was we started receiving feedback from folks saying, why can't you receive texts? I would have texted you. I might not have been comfortable calling you because I didn't want to have someone overhear my conversation, but if I could have sent you a private silent text, I would have done that. We're already seeing examples of getting people out of modern day slavery because of this text short code.
The challenge is there's a lot more that needs to be done.
It's really impossible for law enforcement to deal with this issue alone. We can't arrest our way out of it.
The more we get partners with this, the more that we share, the more that it's unified, the greater opportunity we have. In this country, it is somewhat of an invisible issue, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and that doesn't mean it isn't someone's daughter, it isn't someone's sister.
All you want to do is give them a hug and make them feel like it's okay. And you feel like you can't even give them a hug because that's the exact thing that stole a piece of their innocence away.
The name thorn itself has a beautiful connotation. Thorns protect the rose. And the rose here are our children and their futures.
So you're probably watching that going, that's about sex trafficking. Well, I can tell you this, and remember the big iceberg? This is the way that people are getting kids trafficked. This is the new way. It's not going out and snatching a kid and bringing them in and forcing them to do this, that. It's through these self-produced images online because they get a compromising picture or video, and then, and this is harsh, and this is the reality of it. Once they get that, if there's somebody that's going to traffic a kid, they will find out where that kid is, and they will threaten the kid with the life of their family. And kids, you'd be surprised what kids will do when they think that their integrity or their family's health and well-being is at stake. So we're starting to see a bigger problem with kids being brought into trafficking through this. So that's why I showed that. But again, that's a whole other part of that iceberg. So I'm going to try to speed up a little bit here. I'm routinely asked what parents can and should be doing to protect their children while their children are online. And I have to say, after many years, I've come to the realization that aside from the software programs, school safety programs, it's about connecting with our children and those children in our care. This next video is really quick. It's like a minute 30. I want to show you this video. This is a news story that was ran. I want you to watch it, and afterwards, I want someone to tell me when you think that this story aired. Go ahead.
Central Valley is home to more prosecutions for child porn than any other region in the country. And tonight, KCRA 3's Richard Sharp shows us how one city is reaching out, teaching teenagers not to become the victim of digital abuse.
1 in 7 children are solicited online, according to investigators. Only 25% of those children ever tell their parents. Those statistics are a wake-up call for parents.
It's made me think of what I'm going to run home and change.
At this cyber safety forum in Elk Grove, parents and children learned how child predators target, isolate, and solicit teens through chat rooms, online games, and social networking sites. Internet crime investigators like Sean Smith explain new trends like sextortion, online extortion of teens for nude photos.
It's a big phenomenon that's really starting to grow. We're seeing a lot of cases.
Parents were startled to learn 19% of teens have sent sexual texts, sexting. 39% have posted sexually suggestive messages. Even tech-savvy teens were surprised to learn how easy it is to become a target.
It's very shocking how much it actually does happen and that it could happen to anyone.
Investigators told the crowd as much as 20% of parents don't monitor their children's online activities at all. A mistake this parent says he won't make.
But I think it's showing my son that we know what's out there. We know, we can monitor him.
In Elk Grove, I'm Richard Sharp, KCRA 3 Night Team.
And detectives say the best way parents can protect their kids online is to treat the internet like a car. Before you hand your teen the keys, they need to learn how to drive.
So 20% of those parents admitted that they don't check their kids' online activity, and the others were lying. Like that just, it's higher than that, I guarantee it. But so anyway, does anyone want to guess when that news story ran, real quick? When? 2008? Yeah, that's pretty close. Is that what you were going to say? Yeah. It was about 10, 11 years ago. The reason I show that, the reason I bring that up is because you've heard the statistics today, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So now you know we were educating parents and kids at least 10 years ago about this. So, based on the numbers we talked about earlier with the 4th National Survey of Internet Technology Facilitated Child Exploitation and the NCMEC stats, we are seeing and what you've seen today, whatever we have collectively been doing just isn't working. And I think we need to consider, and this is where like I go into, this is brand new, I've never done this before, I think we need to consider that face-to-face conversations and understanding each other's positions may be more productive. And I think that's where we've had a problem. It can't be us versus them. And I think that's where we've been in the past on some of this. We can't paint our children into a corner and not expect negative experiences as a result of that. And I'll give you a quick, very quick story. I was at a conference. A guy was up speaking like I'm doing. It's all law enforcement officers, so all type A's. And so he says, how many of you are monitoring your kids' online activity? Every hand goes up. Of course I am. And so he goes through these steps, and he says, and how many of you, when you gave the phone to your child, gave them the speech of, I'm giving you this, I'm trusting you with this. However, if you do something stupid with this, I'm taking your phone. And of course, every hand goes in there because, of course, hey, we're good parents. Of course we did that. And he says, that's the worst thing you could do to your kid. And then, of course, our hand goes down real quick. Like, I didn't have my hand up at that point. And the reason is this, is because when a child gets in trouble like this, not when they do something, there is a time and place to take a phone and use that as a punishment, but not here. This isn't it. Because when a child gets into a situation like this with Richard Finkbeiner, who do they need to go to? You. Who are they not going to go to? Who's the last person they're going to go to? You. So we can't paint them into corners and not expect bad things to happen. It takes communicating clearly and often to be effective. One conversation isn't going to get it. It needs to be an ongoing dialogue with your kids. They will teach you while you are engaged in those conversations if you're worried about having these conversations. Another benefit from these conversations, and even if they don't act like it at the time, they will appreciate you showing interest in their world, and they're going to know that you care. And let me say at this point, everyone has to handle this the way that they best see fit according to their beliefs and understandings and the maturity level of the child they're talking with. There's not a one-size-fits-all here. Not every 8-year-old is on the same learning level. Same with every other age. But I will say this. Don't let yourself fall into a false sense of security thinking that your child has not been exposed to anything like this or knows of anything like this or won't fall victim to this. And you can go to the next slide. This is from an FBI agent. It's been a few years ago. You can read it. Basically what she's saying is there's no kid that's not a target. You may have your house locked down like Fort Knox. Your internet's locked down, which is great. But are your child's friends' houses locked down like Fort Knox? Are their friends' parents as on point as you are? And what about at school? What happens there? The human brain is a remarkable thing. Something about the brain that is important in this conversation is that the brain has to develop over time. We've all witnessed it. Those milestones that babies hit. When something clicks for a student that they just couldn't grasp last year. And then some of us are on the other side of the milestone hill, starting to experience more and more often that you forgot why you walked into a room, or where your reading glasses are when they're on your head. Those people have told me about those. That's not stuff I've done. So how many times have we said, hey, please pick up that towel before you leave to our children, or insert whatever you want. They say, okay, they acknowledge it. Your child then tells you a 2 to 3 minute story about something that happened during their day and turn to walk away, and they step over the towel that they acknowledged was there and that they would pick up. My point is this: we can't become frustrated or attacking when things aren't going as we've discussed with our children once or twice. There are much bigger repercussions with this than not picking up a towel. These can be life-altering events for several years or a lifetime. So if this seems like an extremely hot button issue for your child, they're not going to come to you for help or guidance. I don't have time to spend on adolescent brain development. It took me some time to really believe and understand this. But the more I've investigated cases involving children and experienced my own 2 children growing up, and honestly looking back at my own adolescent life, I want to say this. When a child says they don't know why they did or did not do something, there's a really good chance that they're telling you the truth and they're not being deceitful. I'm sure that I'm not the only adult in this room who has done something and a negative result occurred, and I scolded myself and said something like, I knew that was going to happen. Why did I even do that? And our prefrontal cortex is developed, so we still do that. So for us adults, we have to blame it on something else. They can blame it on non-development. For the middle school and high school kids, and unfortunately we could probably add in elementary age anymore, I think Dr. John, and I hope I'm saying his name right, Dr. John Breyer, is onto something when he says, toxic decisions seem rational in toxic environments. And if you think about what's going on with schools today and just society in general, the toxic information being directed at our children on a daily basis from all angles is just staggering. I mentioned earlier that my thoughts after years of being involved with this are that we have to have a better way. We have to connect better with the children that we are entrusted to protect. So, I mentioned Dr. Kathy Cook earlier in her book, Screens and Teens. I want to introduce a book to you. It's called Screens and Teens, Connecting with Our Kids in a Wireless World. It's by Kathy Cook. Some of the information that I've shared has come from her book. With the time I have left, I'm going to try to communicate to you why I believe that I can take my knowledge of criminal investigations and information from her book and blend them into something that I think is at least worth trying. Dr. Cook writes about 5 core needs of children, and quite honestly, it applies to adults as well, but we're going to stick with the kids on this one. The 5 core needs are this, and this is going to be coming at you pretty fast. So I have the book up here. You're welcome to look at it. It's $8 on Amazon. You can get it. But the 5 core needs of children are security, and the question she has, and then she has a question with these. Who can I trust? Their identity, who am I? Belonging, who wants me? Purpose, why am I alive? And competence, what do I do well? Dr. Cook discusses how this is where training and discernment become extremely necessary, and that bringing wise influence to bear in this area must be a major parenting goal. And I hope I communicate this properly, but here's why I think I can blend this and show the kids in these criminal investigations, or I hope, let me start there. Here's why I think we can blend what we see from the kids in these criminal investigations into what Dr. Cook brings to the table. She goes on to say that kids tend to think about these 5 core needs more consciously or subconsciously than we adults do. This becomes problematic when you have a 12-year-old working through these questions, the 5 that I just listed. Who can I trust? Who am I? Who wants me? Why am I alive? What do I do well? And another 13-year-old or 14-year-old comes along to help them sort it out. But what happens if it's not really a 13 or 14-year-old that comes along? You can show those next slides. I'm not going to read them, but you can see. I'll say it again and again. The middle school years are the hardest, and I'm convinced of that. There are so many things going on in a child's world at this time. When I ask the question of adults, how many would like to go back and go through, whether you called it junior high or middle school, who would like to do that again? I rarely get any hands that go up. The normal thing to do now is discuss your feelings with people you meet online. You heard Ashton Kutcher talk about it. We find people with common interests and then bond over those interests. This can happen online very quickly. And yes, we as parents can talk to our kids and tell them do not talk to strangers. The question at hand in that moment is, whose definition of a stranger are we using? At what point is the person your child met online a few days ago no longer a stranger? If this person is friends with some of your child's friends online, are they still a stranger? If in one of the interviews we recently did with a teenage boy, he said, I didn't think anything of it because she was friends with some of my friends. Well, that she turned out to be a he who was exploiting a lot of boys. The adult pretending to be a teenager has been through this phase, just like every adult in this room has. So now you have a child receiving encouragement or reinforcement, etc., from someone they think is their own age, and the advice seems very good. Sometimes it even sounds like advice mom and dad or grandma and grandpa give. They think, wow, this person really gets me. Identity. They are looking out for me. Security. They can't wait to talk to me after school and late at night. Belonging. They love to hear me sing, play an instrument, etc. Competence. They will seem as though they have the child's best interest at heart. The child will begin to have a sense of purpose and want to make this person happy and keep them around because of how this person is making them feel about themselves. I'm going to show one clip from a video that I showed during the presentation at Faith Bible. I think it's important for parents and kids to see how quick things can change and potentially go really wrong when a child falls victim to this scenario of talking to someone you don't know who they are. I'm going to give a spoiler alert because I showed this last time. This involves a 13-year-old girl. She goes to meet someone she met online. And I know we're not talking about kids going to meet people, but again, it's a big iceberg. So what you're going to see is she leaves the house to go meet this person. Her dad is there waiting. It is startling at one point, because I'll just go ahead and give you the spoiler. Dad's there waiting, and Dad's not happy when she gets there. So be prepared for that. Go ahead and show that video. Is it stuck, or is it just not playing? All right, well, we'll skip that one. I kind of explained it to you. So this guy, Kobe person, he sets up a fake account. He reaches out to this 13-year-old girl. He gets her to start talking for a few days, and within just a couple of days, she agrees to meet him at the park. He goes to the park. They have hidden cameras set up. She comes to the park. Dad's hiding behind a rock. Dad jumps out and says, "What are you doing?" And they have this big conversation about it. So if you had seen the video, how can you see this is problematic? Or can you see how this is problematic and that this criminal can meet those 5 core needs within days or weeks if left alone with a child online? And so this is the reason for checking your child's online activity and monitoring what is going on. It's not because you're nosy. It's not because you're a helicopter parent. It is because you as an adult are going to see and read things and interpret them through completely different filters. You will have to use discernment on what you're going to bring up to your child that you saw in a text message or a direct message. Not everything can be cause for declaring a lockdown and that your household is in DEFCON 5 status. Believe me, I tried it for a while. Right, kids? It doesn't work. It's going to require cooperation from your child and understanding from you. It's going to require cooperation from your child in the sense of, in order to check the activity has to be there, right? If you start early with these conversations and remind your children often of the reasons you're checking their data, and they understand that it's not an issue of you not trusting them or that you're just trying to find something to nail them on, it may go much smoother. And I emphasize may. It's not a guarantee. Software programs can help us with this. I don't have time to go into that. If your child has a social media account, make sure you can log into that account. That is a huge thing. If possible, stay logged into that account. A major condition of a child having a cell phone is that they need to know that deleting data is unacceptable, and that's big. There has to be a condition and understanding that they will not delete content. This is of major importance because if they are active online and meeting friends from around the world, they are going to encounter someone that is going to advise them to delete their messages with them. It's going to happen. They're going to demand that they keep their friendship private. They're going to try and introduce a new platform or at least get them off the current platform. And remember the 45% that said it involved more than one platform? Why do they do this? Well, because from the mouths of criminals, I knew the parents might be checking the current app. So they try to get them to move. If you haven't had conversations with your child and laid out very specific guidelines about this before it happens, and discussed why it's important to not delete data, especially if someone's telling them to, your child will have no problems complying with the wishes of the other person. They want to keep this person happy, remember? This person has met those 5 core needs, so they want to keep this person happy. We live in a world where deleting is a natural occurrence. A child takes a selfie, they don't like it, they delete it, they start over, and the process continues until they get the right one. And we've all witnessed that. We've seen kids out in public, we've seen it. There are several issues why it's important to not delete data, and we've talked about the one, and that's so that the parents can review it. It's also important because if there's an issue, a conversation can take place. If there's a serious issue, you need to remember that you're holding a digital crime scene in your hand at that point. For successful investigation, you must include law enforcement immediately. And I cannot stress that much, or I can't stress that enough. You can go ahead and go to the next one. I put this in red because this is huge, and it happens all the time. I told you, remember that you're holding a digital crime scene. Do not delete anything. Even as a parent, when you see it, it's going to be disgusting. It's going to be shocking. Please don't delete it. Take the phone, place it in airplane mode, make sure Bluetooth and wireless are off. And this is the main thing. And again, this seems to always happen on these investigations. Do not text the criminal and tell them that you're the parent, you found out what's been going on, and that you've notified law enforcement. And it seems obvious, but everybody does it. And I'm not saying that I probably wouldn't think about doing that because you're mad and emotions kick in. But hopefully after hearing this, you'll realize I need to take a step back and not do this. Because all you're doing is you're giving them a head start on destroying evidence and coming up with a story. So I hope that you've gotten something from this. I know that that's a big iceberg. We're pretty much out of time, but I want to end with this. All right, if you have questions, just come down here. So I said I wanted you guys to laugh. My kids think that this isn't funny, but I think it's very funny. I'm going to set this up for you, and then we're going to end. I want to end with this, though, because, like I said, everybody needs a laugh. This is a heavy topic, and I know, you've had 50 minutes of this, thrown at you, and it's very tough. So I'm showing this video last because it does show that sometimes a device in the hand of a child can capture something very funny, I guess depending on whose definition you're using, and we can enjoy it for years to come. So I'm going to lay this out because it's kind of quick, but this is a video that was taken by Hadley, my daughter. No kids were hurt in the filming of this video. It looks like it, but Jacob wasn't hurt, I promise. And what this is we had this little Colts football that had it was like a beanbag type thing. And I don't know what was going on, but Jacob says, he's holding this bear, and he says, "Oh, look, another baseball." And Hadley chucks this ball at him while she's videoing, and I'll just let you enjoy. I think it's funny, so go ahead. Hopefully it plays. It's too far. Is it not going to play? Y'all missed out. So it's my video to share. So they look like they're working on it. While they're doing it, any questions? Real quick. Yes, sir.
Near the end of the video with Aston Kutcher, they talk about this database of known images, I guess, that circulate around. Is that basically the exact same thing that Apple is doing something with?
Right.
I think they backpedaled a little recently, but
Yeah.
they're tapping into that to scan your.
Yes, that's exactly. Apple finally got on board. But if you noticed, Apple came out and did a news story, or they telegraphed it. They came out and said, "Hey, we're going to start checking everybody's stuff to see if you've got child pornography," is essentially what they did. So that if they had child pornography, they got rid of it. So that Apple, I can't speak for Apple, but
So is it looking only for known images or similarities?
known images. So every picture or video will have a digital fingerprint. It's only looking for those digital fingerprints. So it's not looking at all content or data, obviously for privacy concerns.
So
but
your
Yes. Yep, because it's not looking at all of your photos. Every picture that you put in your cloud storage has a digital fingerprint, so it's just going through and looking to see, are any of those fingerprints hitting this database? That's it.
Like they're actually going to scan the physical phone, like in addition to their iCloud, but because it's like
I don't know about
built
that.
into the latest iOS or well, it's coming out in a few
Right.
days.
That I'm not sure about, but yeah, so, Brianna? Yesterday. No. Yeah. You know, it just depends. So if it's one that just comes through and it's a weird one, you block it and move on. But it's if you find that your kid has been talking to someone and you see it and go, this doesn't feel right, contact me. It's easier for us to weed it out and say, no, that really was a 13-year-old. It's just a really weird 13-year-old. And that's happened. We've done that. But it's easier for us to do that than to go, okay, well, that turned out to be a 50-year-old guy, and we didn't get the stuff that we needed in time. I really wish you could see that video. That's early. I could go back there. Any other questions? Nothing? All right, well, okay, go ahead. So, how to convince teens that it can happen to them? Well, there's a ton of news stories out there. I usually suggest that, like pull up some news stories and kind of go from there and show them that, you know, these are average, everyday kids. You know, we've got, you know, Finkbeiner had 300 plus victims. We've got another guy that we're doing now where some victims are in this area. He's got over 300 victims. And these are good kids that go to church, they get good grades. So I would start with something like that, just start showing online and seeing some of those quotes. Yes, sir. Is it going on in school? There are programs that go on in schools, not this program, not bringing like the issue of those 5 core needs. I think what happens in the schools is they just say, there's bad people online, you don't need to go online, and you don't need to be in these areas, and that's just not working because the kids are doing that, and a lot of parents are letting the kids do that. Facebook, Instagram, all of them, you have to be 13 to create an account, but we have 8-year-olds that have those accounts. The kids can figure out what year did I need to be born to create a fake account. And Facebook, Instagram, they don't police that. They don't really have a way to police that. They're putting in a fake date, so. Yep. Yeah. Right. Yeah, online gaming is another big thing. And when Fortnite was really big, a lot of kids were getting, a lot of problematic stuff was happening with that because with Fortnite, there was stuff that you could buy with, I don't remember, what was it? What was the stuff, Jacob? V-Bucks? Is that? So you would get V-Bucks, and then you could buy different skins, and you could do this and do that. And the people that were exploiting kids knew that, and so they were going after these young boys and girls and saying, hey, if you do this, I'll give you 20,000 V-Bucks and whatever. So online gaming is another, it's basically anywhere that the kids are, that's where these individuals are going as well. All right, well, you missed out on a really good video. So the next time I talk, we'll make sure. I don't know why that one won't work if the other videos did, but I do have, for the parents in here, this is a copy of her book, Screens and Teens. Like I said, I looked it up on Amazon. It's like $8. There's another book that I recommend for the ones with smaller kids. and that is by Kenneth Wood, and it's called Child Lures, What Every Parent and Child Should Know About Preventing Sexual Abuse and Abduction. That is a very good book as well. And if you want to look at them, you can come up here and take a look at it. But I think I'm going to end it there because it's 10 o'clock. So thanks. And just come down and take a look at this and let me know if you have any questions.